My name is Mike Nelson. My job, underwater research. I've had many tough underwater assignments. I've been hired to photograph sharks for scientific institutions. I've been retained by Marineland to study the behavior of whales at close range. I've explored the treacherous hulks of sunken ships for insurance companies. But the most dangerous job I ever encountered arose on a job when I was hired as a consultant by the Costigan Light Metals Company. When I was told to report to the office of the president for briefing, I knew that my job was important. In his office, the first thing I saw was a strange rock. It glittered like a giant emerald.
You're looking at the ore of beryllium, Mr. Nelson.
Beryllium? Yeah, that's one of the light metals, isn't it?
A vital defense material. But the United States has no stockpile. In case of war, we'd be in trouble. But now, there is a stockpile waiting for us, right here. Over 50,000 tons of high-grade crystals like that one. We've bought up the rights to mine it, but there's one tough problem. The vein is at the bottom of an underwater canyon. Strong surges of current flow right through it. Sides are covered with coral reefs and ledges. Our dredging equipment would get hopelessly snarled.
Yeah, I can see that it would.
Now, what I want you to tell me is this. Could a team of divers mine that ore?
Well, that depends on quite a few things. How deep is the bottom of that canyon?
170 feet.
Well, that wouldn't be easy. The surge would rule out helmet divers. But skin divers equipped with aqua lungs might be able to handle it.
Well, can they work at 170 feet?
Only for a few minutes. But with extra air tanks, that could be stretched to, well, say, an hour per dive.
How many such dives can a man make per day?
Over a sustained period? 2.
No, in that case, we'd need about 20 divers.
You'll be lucky if you get 5.
5? Oh, there must be dozens of frogmen who'd sign up for this job. Men who've been trained to handle the toughest situations in the water.
Down to 110 to 20 feet. Below that, they run into something that training can't prevent. Rapture of the deep.
What's that?
Well, it's kind of a groggy feeling. It's caused by compressed nitrogen in the body. The technical name for it is nitrogen narcosis. You don't know where you are and you start seeing things. Some men actually become violent.
Well, does that affect all divers?
More or less. Some divers can feel it coming on and they swim up to shallow water until it goes away. Others can't recognize the early symptoms. They're the ones that you won't be able to use.
Well, will you help us find divers that we can use?
I said I'd be glad to try.
Thank you, Mr. Nelson.
How are you going to bring heavy rocks up from 170 feet?
Well, first we'll blast them loose from the volcanic lava. Then we'll go back down again and gather them up in steel mesh nets. The ship will haul them to the surface. Charlie, you can't make this kind of dough doing these kind of stunts and pictures.
The money I make in pictures, I live to spend. Sorry, Mike. Too risky for me. See you, Mike.
That'd mean I'd be closing up shop, wouldn't it?
That's right. But think of the dough you'd be making.
How long before I'd have to leave for Madagascar?
10 days from now. Of course, you're going to have to pass some tests first. We couldn't fly you halfway around the world and then find out that you couldn't handle the job.
Well, if I can't handle the job, buddy boy, nobody can. Hand it over.
About how long would I be away?
About a year.
May I ask a question? Is it dangerous?
Louise, your husband was one of the best frogmen in our outfit. If he passes these tests that I'm going to put him through, you haven't got a thing to worry about.
I'm sorry, Doug. I don't want you to go.
But Louise, $300 a week plus expenses. We can't afford to pass up a deal like this.
You're over 30, my darling husband. And besides, you've got Carol and me to think about now.
Okay. I guess I know when I'm licked. If you ask me, pal, you're a pretty lucky guy. Goodbye, Louise. I'll see you, Doug.
Hold it, Mike. Look, who are we kidding? Business has been rotten. The baby's been sick. We got a stack of bills bigger than the house. Count me in.
Doug!
Count me in.
Now, look, why don't you think about this for a while, huh? Give me a ring.
You heard what I said.
Have jaundice, kidney trouble, heart trouble, diseases of the joints,
No.
shortness of breath,
No.
pleurisy, pneumonia, asthma, respiratory infections,
Nope.
any major surgery in the last 5 years.
Nope.
Okay, Doug, you're next.
Yeah.
Stripped to the waist, huh?
Hey, Mike, is this a very tough exam?
Same type you passed in the Navy.
Good.
Sorry I'm late, Mike. Got delayed at the shop.
That's okay, Paul. Doug.
Hi, Paul.
Hi. You, trying out for this Madagascar deal?
Yeah, that's right.
I thought you said it was rough.
It is.
You think you can be counted on? In emergencies, I mean?
Don't worry about me.
What is this?
None of my business.
Oh, wait a minute now. If this is something that I should know, let me hear it.
Well, it happened last summer. He was my buddy on a deep dive. We followed a barracuda into some seaweed, got tangled up.
And?
And he got free. I signaled for help, and he got scared. He went right up.
You let him stay there?
Of course not. I felt nitrogen narcosis hitting me, so I signaled him to go up with me. He refused.
Refused? I was tangled in the seaweed, buddy.
Oh, seaweed. There wasn't any seaweed.
Hey, what is this? I thought you guys were pals. You sweated out the war together? You opened up a diving club? What gives?
It's very simple. He just can't admit he's lost his nerve, that's all.
Look, let's get something straight. You're the one who's lost. When you lost Louise.
Louise?
Don't deny it. Ever since the day we announced our engagement, you've had it in for me. Now you're trying to knife me in the back.
I'm trying to keep you from killing yourself. You're afraid. The first dive you make below 50 feet, you'll panic.
Mr. Trimble.
We'll see about that when I make my test.
Yeah, we will.
Doug?
Yeah?
I don't know which one of you is telling the truth, but this is going to be a very rough job. Each diver is going to have to depend on the other guy for his life. I don't want any personal grudges. Is that clear?
Sure.
Yeah.
This was a problem that I hadn't bargained for. Two divers that I was counting on the most at each other's throat, when every candidate was essential to this nationally important project. The assignment was a great challenge. If I could train skin divers to become underwater miners, the great resources of underwater mineral deposits would be available, increasing our national wealth. We devoted several days testing individual divers. Each man had to qualify in the use of underwater explosives so they could blast the beryllium ore loose from the bottom of the sea in Madagascar. After the fuses were lit, we returned to our base of operation, a diving barge, anchored 1 mile offshore and equipped with a hoist, emergency devices, and a cabin with a decompression chamber, in case anyone might suffer from the rapture of the deep. This was the last day of the tests. Mr. Costigan was aboard, and he had very good reason to be concerned. So many men had failed to qualify that the Madagascar crew was still short 2 divers, and only a few candidates left. Paul Barton and Doug Trimble were members of this last group. About 5 seconds to go. Now. Right on the button. All right, men. We're right over the spot now. The next phase of this test will be a dive to the bottom. You'll all go down in pairs. Each man will have one of these nets lowered to him. Johnny, will you bring it in, please? One of these. It'll be your job to fill it with as many rocks as you possibly can. Now, ain't question.
Any particular size rock?
The bigger the better. Those explosions must have broken plenty of them loose.
How much time are we going to have?
4 minutes. Oh, and let me caution you. Don't work too fast. I don't want anyone collapsing on me down there. Oh, and if you feel the Rapture coming on, signal me and go on up. Is it all clear?
Right.
Okay. Let's get wet, huh?
Right, Johnny, lower the net.
Getting nervous, Bertie boy?
Not a bit.
I carried an underwater slate to grade them for performance and write down instructions. The first two divers began working at a good steady pace without hurrying. The water gave the rocks a certain amount of buoyancy, and I felt pretty hopeful that both of them may qualify. But working at a great depth, breathing compressed air for a prolonged time plays tricks in the mind. And one of the divers suddenly forgot one of the safety rules of diving. Look first before you reach into dark holes, or you may tangle with the vicious teeth of a moray eel. When molested, these babies attack ferociously with powerful jaws and sharp teeth which slant inwards. Suddenly the eel struck, fastening its teeth in his hand like fish hooks. Killing the eel proved to be a tough job, but prying those jaws loose was even tougher. The wound was bleeding badly, so I quickly improvised a tourniquet. This man had forgotten an important safety regulation. It was obvious that he was affected by Rapture of the deep. He didn't meet our safety standards, and we were still short of at least one diver. I now had 7 men for Costigan's crew, but at least one more was needed to make the project practical. The tests of Doug Trimble and Paul Barton would be vitally important, but first we had to take care of the injured man.
Get the first aid kit.
How you feel?
Like I went through a buzzsaw.
He was lucky.
What do you mean?
His buddy stuck by him.
Why don't you knock it off?
You got a rope around him. Watch out below there.
Not too late to back out. I could understand.
Listen, I told you to knock it off. I didn't chicken out on you last summer. I haven't lost my nerve. I'm still just as good a diver as I ever was, so get off my back.
I don't understand why you're trying to con yourself into a job you know you can't handle.
I don't understand why you're trying to knife your own buddy in the back. No matter how jealous you are.
Jealous?
Yeah, jealous.
Yeah, stop it! Cut it out! Cut it out! You hear me? Cut it out! Cut it out! I suppose I ought to be grateful to both of you. You saved me from making a costly mistake. Putting you on the crew. You're both out.
Hey, hold it, Mike. Why not take one of them? I need every man I can get.
Okay. One of you goes.
Which one?
We'll soon find out. Put on your scuba. Now remember, you'll be graded not only on the number of blocks you can gather, but on diving technique, response to orders, and reaction to emergencies. All right, let's go.
Lower away.
Paul started out with an impressive show of strength, working fast. I wondered how long he could keep up that pace, though. Doug worked more slowly, apparently saving himself the long haul. Both men seemed to react favorably to the extreme depth and pressure. I always knew that they were good divers. I was impressed by Doug's good sense. He knew that he was falling behind, but he stuck to his slower pace. It was clear that he knew his own limits and wasn't taking any foolish chances. On the other hand, Paul seemed dissatisfied with a comfortable lead. I began to worry that he would push himself to the point of exhaustion, which can come on you with surprising suddenness at this depth, without any signs of forewarning. I gave him immediate instructions on my slate. I was happy to see that he could respond to orders, something any child can do in the fresh air and sunshine, but which is far from simple under these conditions. Both men were working extremely well, collecting rocks of different sizes. I was beginning to have hope that Costigan would have the extra man that he so desperately needed for his crew, and that underwater mining might soon become a reality because of these tests. I was grading Doug, observing him closely, when Paul suddenly did the unexpected. Instead of a rock, he picked up a guitar fish and began doing an Apache dance. Then he seemed to think that it was a golf club and imagined himself on the fairway. He was as giddy as a schoolgirl. This wasn't funny. I told him that he had Rapture of the deep. I ordered him to go up to the shallower water where I knew the condition would automatically clear up. But instead of obeying, he nearly bashed my head in. Then he surprised Doug. This was Rapture of the Deep at its unpredictable worst. One minute he was like a kid playing games. The next he was a crazed madman bent on killing every living creature within reach. Paul's blow had dazed me. I felt paralyzed, as though I were caught in a weird nightmare. The two figures struggling desperately nearby seemed completely unreal. I kept waiting for them to disappear. But those fighting shapes persisted, and when they finally became shockingly real to me, I grabbed Paul. But he seemed to have the strength of a madman. It took a judo hold to finally subdue him. I pushed him into the rock net and had him hauled up. This created a new danger. In his condition, he might neglect to expel the compressed air which was expanding rapidly in his lungs as he was hauled up toward the surface. But the decompression chamber we had on our barge was for just such an emergency. It would prevent Paul's lungs from rupturing, which would almost certainly kill him.
Get him into the decompression chamber.
By applying air pressure inside the chamber, we took him back to the same conditions of 170 feet below and kept him there for 6 hours. How do you feel, Paul?
Okay.
This is the last stop. After reducing the pressure in slow stages, it was safe to open the lock of the chamber.
Is there a blanket over there, Mr. Costigan?
Here we go. How do you feel?
Yeah, better.
Stand up for this, Ray.
What did I do down there?
Tried to kill us both.
Did I?
Yes, you did.
There was no giant squid?
No.
Last summer, no seaweed. I guess that lets me out.
I'm afraid it does, Paul.
I'm sorry for the way I acted.
Forget it. We both know how 170 feet of seawater can knock a guy off base. Is that right, Doug?
That's right.
Well, that's another one we'll have to cross off the list. And that wraps up the test. 8 qualified.
They can all make the grade, huh?
Guaranteed.
What about Rapture of the Deep?
They can handle it. You can start mining that ore as soon as you can get them to Madagascar.
Good.
My job was done. Soon metal taken from the ocean floor and fabricated into planes and rockets would go shooting through the air, maybe even into space. And underwater mining would become a fact. Hi, I'm Lloyd Bridges, inviting you to join us for another action-packed story of underwater adventure 1 week from today. So absorbing do I find the sea that I often spend my playing as well as working hours in it. But sometimes a turnabout from pleasure to peril can occur in a few minutes, like that beautiful day that I was hunting abalone with my friends off Lorient Cliff. Above us, an inner tube held a net and waited for our catch. 20 feet below, Doug, his wife Mella, and I were swimming happily, enjoying the beauty of the sea. I was leading the way as we hunted along the submerged face of the cliff. We had no way of knowing that within minutes, we would be the ones who were hunted by the world's most savage monster, the killer whale. It was easy to see that Doug and Mala were very much in love. And if I hadn't been leading the party, I'm afraid that they would have forgotten all about abalone. I was enjoying the search very much. There, I spotted a couple of big ones. I called Doug and Mala to pry off the shells and would have looked for more. But a glance at my underwater watch told me that we had only a few minutes of air left. Near us was a narrow entrance to an underwater cave. While they were busy with the abalone, I turned to examine the cave and found that it was small, without air, and held nothing but a few frightened fish. Meanwhile, my friends had done a good job on the shells and were pleased with their catch. I gave a signal, and we surfaced to the net.
When we did 10, I don't know.
At least 10 pounds, anyway, huh?
Mike, you see the way she fried that air, boss? Sure hate to ever come after me with an air, boy.
Yeah, me too. That's quite a muscle you got there. What's the matter?
Shark!
That's no shark, that's a killer whale. Look at that high curved fin.
Oh, Doug!
Don't move. Can't see us, but they can feel vibrations.
Maybe we can make it ashore, huh?
Oh, that's a sheer wall.
He's coming closer.
Maybe you won't attack.
Maybe he will, you never know. That cave I was just in down below. He's too big to get in after us.
We only have 6 or 7 minutes of air left.
We'll have to take our chance. Come on now, feet first. Don't splash.
As we hurried to the cave, I again led the way along the same cliff. But this time, it seemed like an entirely different place. The height of that fin told me that the killer must be at least 30 feet long. I hoped that he was after other game, but I knew that killer whales preferred warm-blooded prey, and often human beings. As I motioned Doug and Bella into the cave, I was still hoping that the whale hadn't noticed us. But he had. He was coming at us like a giant torpedo. Fortunately, I'd figured right. The cave opening was too small for him. But we had just slipped out of his reach, temporarily. I wondered how long the whale would wait outside for us. I knew that in all the oceans there is nothing faster, more cunning, or more savage than these killers. That they often even capsize boats. Would this one find a way to get us? I wondered how long our air would last. I remembered that these whales were known to kill anything, even sperm whales 3 times their size, and that they couldn't be bluffed or frightened. Doug estimated that he had 6 minutes of air left. Mala probably had less. We were in a deadly game of cat and mouse. The cat was 30 feet long, and we were the mice. The killer seemed to be circling away. Was this just a trick, or had he gone? I signaled Doug and Mala not to move while I slipped out to investigate. I was taking a desperate chance, but in a few minutes we would all run out of air. I decided to swim cautiously around a slight bend in the cliff before surfacing for a look. It was then that Doug made a fatal mistake. Knowing that Mala was almost out of air was more than he could bear. He disregarded my instructions and left the cave. I supposed that he'd hoped to swim to the boat and bring back another diving load. He came up by the net. He looked around and saw nothing. Then he decided to swim for the boat. When he saw the whale, it was too late. The whale passed under him and turned around. Doug swam for the boat with all his might. But it was hopeless. The killer took him in one gulp. Meanwhile, I swam back to the cave. I hadn't seen the whale or Doug. Mala had no air left, so I gave her some of mine. I figured that we could reach the surface if we shared the air in my tank, and if the killer didn't get us. We moved up as quietly as we could, passing the mouthpiece back and forth. Then I saw something which told me that we would probably be safe. Porpoises, one of the favorite victims of the killer whale.
There they are, the porpoises.
But the killer.
That's what I mean. There he goes. He's after them now. They saved our life.
My course, Doug.
Must be on the boat.
Doug, are you there?
WA-421 to the Coast Guard. WA-421 to the Coast Guard. Come in, Coast Guard.
Go ahead, WA-4210.
A killer whale has just attacked this boat. A crew of 3 skin divers on the Lorient Cliff. When last seen, the killer whale was heading northwest. One man probably killed by the animal.
My message to the Coast Guard set in motion a vast operation. Within seconds, warnings were radioed to all coastal installations in the region. From all directions, Coast Guard boats and helicopters, converged on the area. Every search device was used. Thousands of unsuspecting bathers had to be warned, and countless small craft at sea. One small boat had already been attacked, with one man overboard and missing.
Let her cry, it'll help her. In 50 years at sea, I've seen killer whale a dozen times close up. They're vicious.
They ought to be destroyed, every last one of them. And with this one prowling the coast, no skin diver or small boat is going to be safe.
My last 7 years, I was mate to Bob McKay on his motor schooner. That was the days when shark liver brought a good price. Basking shark. Some of them 40-footers. More than once, we'd almost had our shark boated when the carcass be torn away by one of them killers. Torn, my boy. My son.
Lars, I'm going to find that killer whale, the one at Lorient Cliff, and I'm going to kill him.
It's a big ocean. Even the Coast Guard hasn't been able to sight him.
Maybe that's because they've been looking for him where he's been, not where he's going to be.
Where? You said yourself he was headed for open water.
The cup's been very heavy this year on the offshore islands, especially at St. Denis.
I know.
You know what that means?
Sure. Herring in big shoal coming in early.
And big herds of seal coming in, too.
Yeah, they've always followed the herring.
That's where they're most likely to be feeding, at St. Denis. Because of the rocks. Ain't right, Lars?
Sure. Seal meat. That's what the killer whale likes best.
That's where I'll find him. Off the St. Denis rocks, raiding the seal herd. But how am I going to get him when I find him? My .38 carbine won't even dent him.
How about a harpoon gun? The one we used on Bob McKay's boat to take shark.
You got one?
I'll get it. Bob McKay still has it down at Fort Clement. He lives with his son down there.
Wait.
I'll get the one.
Lars, I'm going with you.
Wait a minute now. Wait. Sit down, Lars. This is no job for you.
Oh, I know.
Now you, Mella. I'm going to go over and get that harpoon gun at Bob McKay's right now. By tomorrow morning, I'll be on my way to St. Denis Island.
Mike, I'm going with you tomorrow.
No, Mella.
I'm going. For us, Lars.
At 7 o'clock the next morning, we were almost ready to shove off for St. Denis Island. Old Bob McKay had loaned me his harpoon gun, and his son Will had offered to come with me to help. I gladly accepted because although I've used many weapons, I never shot one like this before.
Isn't that Doug Anderson's cruiser?
It's his widow's now. What about this gun? Does it work all right? When was the last time you fired it?
A few weeks ago. We take it down to the beach and fire it every once in a while. Pa gets a kick out of it. He designed it. See, explosive shell fits in the head. The barbs attached to the head. They both fit onto the end of the harpoon shaft. Now, when the head penetrates, it explodes.
Now, what's the range of this gun?
Extreme, 100 feet. You got to get closer to get any penetration.
Explode this anywhere near its vital organs, we're gonna have to drive this thing through 5 or 6 feet of bone and muscle.
Then we should fire from 50 feet.
Stow this gear, I will.
Right.
WA-1005, Mike Nelson.
Mike, this is Mala. I'm at the Coast Guard station.
Mrs. Anderson will be ready for you in a moment.
They asked me to come down here. Don't go without me.
Mala, I told you before, this is no job for you. Now stay home, huh?
A body was washed up near Lorient Cliff. They want me to identify it. I've a right to go with you, Mike. Doug was my husband. The whale killed him. I've got to see that thing dead.
Mrs. Anderson.
Mala, please, be intelligent about this, huh?
Mike, you've got to wait for me.
This way, please.
Mala! Mala! That was Mala. Couldn't talk her out of coming along.
This is no trip for a woman. That whale charged the boat yesterday. Could do the same today.
Let's shove off before she gets here, huh?
Right.
Mrs. Anderson.
No, it's not Doug.
Well, I'm sorry to have to put you through this. Must have been the man who was knocked off the small boat yesterday.
Goodbye, Lieutenant. I've got to hurry.
Take him down to the morgue.
St. David's Island. We'll approach it from the north.
I don't see any seals. You sure this is where they come?
If that killer gets within a quarter of a mile of here, you'll see him climb those rocks for safety. There'll be hundreds of them. You won't be able to see the rocks for the seals. And I just where I want to put that gun. Now, let's get it on the dinghy and get ashore, huh? That's where they'll be coming up, right down there. You want to be able to cover that spit of rocks, too. I've seen them come up there sometimes.
I don't know, that's kind of far. Almost 100 feet. This way it's no more than 50.
Well, anyway, this is where most of them will be. This is where the killer will be, too, sooner or later. Because he'll try to slaughter them all. Hey. Something heading in this way, coming fast. Take a look. Over this way, look. About 250 yards out. You see him?
Seals, hundreds of them.
Yeah, and you're just looking at the middle of the parade. Look over here. They're the leaders.
Boy, they sure are in a hurry to get out of the water.
Yeah, they're scared.
The killer whale?
Yeah, there he is. Oh, you can never mistake that fin. About 6 feet high and curved like a sword. Well, the herring takes the kelp, the seal takes the herring, and the killer whale takes the seal, and we take the killer whale.
Just listen to them. Boy, they sure are scared.
Yeah. They know the killer's out there.
That one's sure acting kind of strange.
stand waiting for the killer to attack. And that's what he's gonna do. Just watch, right out there. There he goes. Psychological warfare.
Boy, look at them panic.
Fear drives him right off the rocks and into his jaws.
He's coming in closer now.
You're gonna wait till you get a shot broadside, aren't you?
Yeah.
Good. To fin that high out of the water, you gotta place that harpoon about 3 feet below the waterline, don't you think?
Yep.
Oh, he sure is coming in all right.
Spin's coming up higher. He's only about 150 feet out now.
Don't fire until... Hold it. That's Mel, isn't it? Mel! Mel! Go back, Mel! Go back! The killer! The killer! Go back! Go back! What happened? What's the matter? Go on!
My propeller's caught in the seaweed!
Mike, the killer's behind you! Mike, watch out! Will! Get him the next time he jumps!
Our revenge was complete. But nothing could replace Doug. The sea had taught us another of its costly lessons. Hello there. I'm Lloyd Bridges. You know, 3/5 of the world is covered by the sea. And how little most of us know about that underwater world. Go below with us again next week, huh? For another thrilling adventure in Sea Hunt. sport of skin diving has been increasing by leaps and bounds, and the problems of law enforcement agencies have been increasing right along with it. This boatman was part of an organized plot to steal outboard motors. He was loosening the clamps of an expensive motor and dropping it in the water. If discovered, he'd say it was an accident. His accomplice was an underwater swimmer, and his job was to recover the motor. If questioned, he would say that he found it while skin diving. If not questioned, he had an outboard motor. This type of crime brought me 3,000 miles across the country from Marineland, California, to Silver Springs, Florida. The Florida Highway Patrol was as progressive as the criminals. They decided to organize an underwater patrol, and they asked me to train their best swimmers to become proficient skin divers. I started with two fine-looking officers, Hal Davis and Tom Edwards. Both turned out to be good skin divers, but I didn't know how soon they'd have to prove it. A few days later, it happened again. This time, a New York businessman, James Aladdin, and his daughter Judy were the victims of an underwater crime. While they were peacefully fishing, an unidentified skin diver started swimming up toward the Aladdin cruiser.
Like a man from Mars, except that you came from the wrong direction.
Yeah, I misjudged a little bit. I'm out of air.
Well, come on aboard.
Oh, thank you.
My name's James Aladdin.
I'm Don Martin.
Welcome aboard, Mr. Martin. This is my daughter, Judy.
How do you do?
Miss Aladdin, how's the fishing?
It's a fake. I've read all the books and obeyed all the rules. Fish don't read the same books.
How about you, sir?
Oh, with me, it's just a matter of who cares, just so's I get a minute to relax. Where are you bound for, Mr. Martin?
Thought I'd try a little spear fishing?
Is that a spear gun?
Yes, and it has an explosive head. At close range, it could kill an alligator or a man if he doesn't do exactly as he's told.
Well, I can promise you this man isn't going to argue. You're in the driver's seat, mister. What's next?
Put all your valuables in this bag. Hurry. Everything. You miss out anything, you'll be risking a trip to the undertaker. Now hand it over. Now you start your engine. I'll tell you where to go.
The next lesson was about hand-to-hand combat. How to disarm an opponent with a knife underwater. My two students lived up to everything that I thought about them. Soon they'd become the nucleus of an underwater force that would make Florida's 1,349 miles of coastline safe from illegal underwater activity. Judy and her father had been tied up. They'd also been gagged. Mr. Aladdin had difficulty in breathing. The criminal's next step was to go below with a tow line, swim down, way down to the bottom, and find a log that he could tie the line to. His purpose was to stop the boat from drifting. This would delay the discovery of his act.
Trouble clearing your nose?
Had a little trouble with my ears.
Just do that up. Blow on it like that.
Well, what next?
I gotta find some deeper water for you fellas. See how you react to nitrogen narcosis.
What's that?
It's also called Rapture of the Deep. It's what happens to a diver when he stays down too long in deep water. He gets kind of giddy. He's liable to do anything. The thing to do then, of course, is to go up right away.
Hey, Tom!
Now what?
Commissioner's in the car. He wants to see you right away.
Okay.
We were driven to the scene of the crime. Mr. Aladdin was rushed to a hospital before we got there, suffering from asthma. The gag almost suffocated him. Miss Aladdin was there to answer our questions.
This is where the cruiser was anchored when the man came aboard.
Where was it when he left it?
Jacob's Inlet, about a mile up that way.
Did you notice the tanks in his back?
Yes,
How many were there?
2.
Were they large ones, or were they small?
They're about that size.
You sure now? It's very important.
Yes, I'm sure.
And you said he had a spear gun. Was the point a sharp one, or was it the blunt one?
It was sharp.
I think we got to go up to Jacob's Inlet.
Okay. Hal, you take Miss Aladdin back to the hospital. All right, Tom.
There's no such thing as a blunt spear. I just wanted to test Miss Aladdin's power of observation before exploring the lake bottom around Jacob's Inlet. We were looking for underwater clues. We had no idea just what they would be. There are no fingerprints underwater, but perhaps we might run into a piece of lost equipment or something. We wanted to know about the entrance and the exit of the robber. Where we thought he had stood on the bottom. Swimming up and down in a regular pattern, covering every inch of the bottom, we reached the place where he had tied the line to prevent his victim's boat from drifting away. Now we knew the place of his last underwater activity. It was logical to assume that he would leave the lake at the nearest possible point. We swam in that direction. Came out of the water in a sheltered cove and soon learned that our hunch was correct.
like there's been a boat moored here.
Yeah, it sure does.
Hey, look at this. What's that?
That's talcum powder. It's what we used to put our wetsuits on, remember?
Yeah, I see what you mean. We better check this area.
We had found the spot of the criminal's exit. Now we had to find the criminal himself. Compressed air is a skin diver's lifeline. He had to get it somewhere. Maybe I could find the source of the hold-up man's supply. There was only one place in the county where a skin diver could refill his empty tanks.
You know where Waco is?
Right up the end of the walkway there.
Thank you, boy.
And the place belonged to a little old man. Hi. Hi. You the gentleman they call Waco?
I am.
You keep a record of the customers that you rent these diving lungs of yours to?
I sure do. You skin diver?
Yeah. You do me a favor?
Name it.
Give me the descriptions and names of these customers. You got a record book?
Sonny, I don't keep a record book. That's old-fashioned. I keep my records up here where I don't lose them. Have a seat. You got a pencil and paper?
No, I don't think I have.
Well, there's one there by the telephone, a notebook and a pencil.
This one all right?
That's all right. Now, first is Chuck Phillips. He's 47 years old. Got 2 young'uns, a girl 11.
How tall would you say he is?
He's about 6'2". He rents the old Winky place.
How much would you say that he weighs?
Well, I'd say that he weighs about 180. His wife's ailing. She's been ailing ever since he's been down here this season.
I just came from the hospital. Mr. Aladdin's going to be all right.
Good.
How'd you make out?
Well, I have a detailed description of Waco's 19 customers.
The best the Aladdins could do was he's around 180 pounds, about 6 foot tall, around 40 years old, and he might have a mustache.
I have a mustache, huh? Let's see. He's too young. This sounds like the character Herb Warren. He's a mechanic in Cy Langley's garage.
Well, I'll do some checking on him. I'll drop you off at the motel. You pick up Miss Aladdin. Meet me at Cy Langley's garage in about an hour.
Okay.
Now, she'll have to give me a positive identification, or I can't take him in.
Are you Herb Warren?
Yes, sir.
You've been on the job all day?
It seems like I'm on a job all the time.
For instance, we were here at 10:30 this morning.
No. Wait till the 1:45 last night. Felt ought to have a couple extra hours sleep.
You do much skin diving?
A little.
Do any this morning?
Not this morning. Why?
Is there anyone that can back up your story about being asleep this morning at home?
Guess not. I don't like to have people around while I'm sleeping. Except Candy.
Candy?
Candy's my cat.
Miss Aladdin, have you ever seen this man before? Well?
I don't know.
Well, is there anything about him you recognize?
Well, I have to be honest, Mr. Edwards. There's something about this gentleman that's familiar, but I can't be sure that he's the man who robbed us.
A robber? Well, I like that. I've been accused of robbing my customers, but no one else.
We're just making a routine check, Mr. Warren. Sorry to have bothered you.
That's all right, sir. Anytime.
It wasn't a positive identification, so later in the day, Tom and I paid another visit to Waco's boathouse.
Hi, Waco. You want to take a look at Mr. Warren's tank?
Sure. Here, it's a doubler. Okay. What you doing, son?
We're going to give Mr. Warren a little surprise. This is tracing liquid.
What's that?
You can't see it in daylight, but it'll stick out like a sore thumb when we put that black light on it.
Black light? What are you fellers giving me?
Show him, Tom.
Well, what do you know?
Anything that this tank touches will glow as bright as this tank.
That way we can keep track of Mr. Warren.
Gee, what'll they think of next?
Waco, Mr. Warren comes in to get his tank, act just like nothing ever happened. And phone me.
Can depend on me, son. Can depend on me.
You coming, Mike?
Yeah. How we thank you, Waco?
Anytime. Is this Tom Edwards?
That's right.
Listen, this is Waco. You know that feller Warren we were talking about? Well, he come by and took his tank, put it in a boat, and took off.
Which way did he go?
He went towards Jacob's Inlet.
Thanks a lot, Waco.
Anytime.
That must be Warren's boat.
Yeah. Let's put on our equipment, huh? Bubbles. I'll be with you in a minute.
The man had a head start, but Tom was an excellent swimmer. caught up with Tom, but decided to stay in the background. I kept an eye on him, but I was reasonably sure that he could do the job by himself. He remembered everything that I had taught him. The knife attack didn't surprise him. He used a judo hold. His opponent was helpless. I gave him a hand in bringing him to the surface for questioning.
You fellas scared me.
Is that why you're in such a hurry to get away?
Well, sure. I thought you were a couple of robbers.
It's a funny thing. We thought the same about you.
What was that you threw away underwater, Mr. Warren?
I don't remember throwing anything away. Say, what is all of this? I come out here for some peaceful skin diving.
A peaceful man, you put up a pretty good fight.
Well, you know how it is. Man gets panicky. Come up out of the water, you two bearing down on me. Been a lot of robberies here lately.
Yeah, we know.
Calla 186. Calla 186.
Get in. .186, Ocala, okay.
A stolen robbery reported to Anderson's cottage near Jacob's Inlet.
We're on our way over right now. 186, clear.
Hi, Tom. Hi, Mike.
Whoever pulled this job must have come out of the water. Take a look. You find anything yet, Mike?
Not yet. Hey, what's he doing?
That tank you were wearing is coated with a tracing liquid that only shows up under ultraviolet ray light. If there's any sign of that liquid on these premises, you're in, Mr. Warren, and I do mean in.
There's one. Tom went after Warren. I signaled to the other patrolman to let Tom do it all by himself. I knew this was the way he wanted it. He did it like an expert. There's always the time when the student becomes the master. Today, the Florida Highway Patrol is the first in the country with an underwater force. I'm proud that I had something to do with it.
Hi, I'm Lloyd Bridges, inviting you to join us for another action-packed story of underwater adventure 1 week from today.
the scientists of Marine Land of the Pacific captured a live whale, history was made. It was my privilege to test whether the whale was friendly toward humans. Luckily for me, she was. In a few weeks, she became as tame as a trained seal, and just as smart. I was observing her attitude toward a giant turtle in the Marine Land tank when suddenly I heard a knock on the window. A page boy was waiting for me with an urgent message. A message that turned out to be more dangerous than any sharks or whales that I've ever encountered in the sea. The urgent call was from Tom Quinn, an old diving buddy of mine, and a lieutenant in homicide. He needed my help, so I got down to his office as fast as I could. Hi, Tom.
Mike, good of you to come right down.
Oh, you said it was urgent, didn't you?
Yeah, it is. Oh, excuse me.
Keep those bugs away from me.
Oh, isn't this a summer cold, you know? Look, sit down. I got a problem that I think you can help me with.
Yeah? Well, what is it? Fire away.
Did you hear about the Tyler accident?
Tyler accident?
Yeah, Maria Tyler. She's skin diving with her husband, drowned the day before yesterday.
Oh, yeah, I remember reading about that. She swam down too deep. Well, that was a tragic accident.
Was it? An accident?
What do you mean?
I mean, I'm not convinced that it was. And that's where you come in. I'd like to get Tyler in here and have him tell you in detail his story of the fatal day, and then you tell me what you think.
Now, wait a minute. I'm not a detective. Besides, you've done a lot of diving.
Oh, Mike, I'm not in your league. Look, I need expert advice. A man's life is at stake. Bring Tyler in here. Okay, Mike.
Well, what can I say? He's on his way in here.
Money. Thanks, Halloran. Tyler, this is Mike Nelson.
Hi. I've heard of you.
Tyler?
Sit down. I would like you to tell Mike exactly what happened that day.
Well, there's not much to tell. My wife Maria and I have been doing a lot of diving during the last few months. We're working on a book, or what we hoped would be a book of underwater photographs, combining two hobbies, photography and skin diving. Having a lot of fun with both of them. We were going to take some color pictures of the sunken wreck in Dead Man's Cove. I dropped anchor while Maria screwed the camera into the underwater housing. We studied the chart before we dove. It was a beautiful day, but Maria was in a mischievous mood. Playful, like a kitten. She swam down ahead of me. I have sinus trouble, and it takes me longer to adapt to the pressure changes than it does other divers. But Maria had no fear of the water, and often dove deeper than she should have. That day, before we dove, she promised to stay close to me and be careful. The wreck was down 32 feet on a ledge. Below it was a 500-foot drop to the ocean floor. Maria poked around the old ship while I set the shutter. She signaled me to take her picture and began posing for silly snapshots. We had quite a collection of them at home. Then, breaking her promise, she swam away from me, going deeper. I stuck with her, and she posed for another picture. Maria swam over to the ledge to pose for more pictures. My ears were beginning to hurt, but I stuck close to her. I checked my underwater housing to make sure that it was still watertight. Suddenly, while I was advancing the film, Maria dove down over the ledge. In spite of my warning, she swam deeper and deeper. My ears were about to burst. I was down 70 feet, and the pressure was killing me. I couldn't follow her. I had to get to shallower water. I looked down after her, praying that she would appear at any moment. But she didn't. I waited for nearly an hour. My air supply was exhausted. I switched over to the emergency reserve supply. Took one last look, and then I had to surface. I knew I'd never see her again. She was gone. There was nothing I could have done to save her. I begged her not to go that deep. She knew I couldn't follow her. I begged her.
He called the Coast Guard. They made a search. Couldn't find her.
This picture here, the last one of the sequence. What depth was that taken, huh?
Oh, about 70 feet. That was just
before. You have a flash attachment on your camera?
No.
Would you like to ask him some more questions?
No.
Would you wait outside, please?
Sure.
You're a big help. Why didn't you ask him some more questions?
I don't have to. Take a look at this picture.
Well, I already have. I don't see anything.
Look at the helmet.
Yeah?
What color is it?
It's yellow. Light yellow.
That's right. Yellow.
Yeah? I don't get it.
This picture couldn't have been taken at a depth of 70 feet like Tyler claimed. Yellow doesn't appear as yellow at that depth.
Why not?
As you descend, certain colors are filtered out of the visible spectrum by the water. They're absorbed. They become shades of blue and green. At great depths, they become grays and blacks.
Oh, is it possible his depth gauge was off?
No, not that much. This picture couldn't have been taken below 35 or 40 feet.
You mean at the top of the ledge?
That's right. Tyler's lie.
Halloran?
Yes?
Book Tyler on suspicion of murder.
Maria Tyler had drowned while skin diving with her husband. Lieutenant Quinn of homicide suspected that she had been murdered. Now we had to prove it.
Mike, what are the chances of recovering that body?
You serious? No diver's been down 500 feet.
Well, I wasn't thinking of a diver. Drag, perhaps.
Oh, no. That wouldn't work. Look. See this? Rocky bottom. All along this area.
Well, then we haven't got a case. Without a body, we don't stand a chance in front of the jury.
All right, Tyler, he sure picked the perfect spot. It's completely inaccessible. He knew we wouldn't be able to recover that body. At least not for a couple of years, anyway. By then, there wouldn't be anything left of it.
What do you mean, a couple of years?
Hmm?
What do you mean, a couple of years?
Oh, yeah. Yeah, in a couple of years, we might be able to dive 500 feet down.
What, you mean in a free dive?
Yeah, could be.
Why, that doesn't seem possible.
They're working on it at the Naval Electronics Lab. I just got back from there.
How does the human body survive that pressure?
Well, they're developing a breathing mixture. And they're making a pill that's going to absorb the gases in the blood.
That sounds amazing.
Yeah, it sure does. A couple of years, we might be diving 500 feet. Maybe 1,000.
That's it. That's the answer.
What's the answer?
Can you act? Huh?
Tom had a plan to trick Tyler into making a confession. It all depended on my being able to convince Tyler that I could do the impossible.
You all set, Mike?
Yeah. Been waiting for you.
You got everything?
Everything.
Well, let's go.
We pulled out of the harbor and headed for Dead Man's Cove.
All right, this is it.
You're sure this is a spot now?
Yeah, I'm sure.
Okay, Tom. Drop her here, huh? It's clear as glass.
Yeah. It's good, huh?
Put our gear on.
And now let's get this straight. I want you to be in the lead. You recreate that dive, movement by movement, exactly as it was. You understand?
I intend to, Lieutenant. I got nothing to hide.
All right. Here. Use this slate. Write down everything exactly as it happened and where it happened.
Whatever you say, Lieutenant. Happy to cooperate. Oh, Lieutenant, just one thing. I got to go slow. My sinuses.
Give me a hand here with this, will you?
What kind of a lung is this?
It's a very special. I got it from the Naval Electronics Lab.
I've never seen anything like it before.
It's an experimental model. It's still classified.
And what are you doing with it?
Hey, let me borrow it whenever I want to do a special dive like this.
Special dive?
Oh, Tom, I almost forgot my pill. Get it for me, will you?
Pill?
It absorbs the gases in the blood. Keeps you from getting the bends.
The bends? How can you get the bends at 35 feet?
Mike's going a little deeper than that.
Deeper.
I want to take a look around at the bottom of the ledge.
The bottom? That's 500 feet.
Yeah, that's why I got this special equipment.
Well, that's not possible. World's record is only 420 feet.
Yeah, well, that was yesterday's record. It's just a sporting record, not a military one. The Navy record is still a military secret, you know. Well, I'm all set. How about you, fellas?
Let's go, Tyler.
Yeah.
Pretty good job of acting. You almost convinced me.
Almost convinced myself.
Tyler had told us the story that he followed his wife down as deep as he could, to 70 feet. But the color of yellow in his last picture, a color which doesn't exist at 70 feet, showed that he was lying. We believe that Tyler's wife had never gone over the ledge of her own free will. We believe that Tyler had murdered her at the old wreck at 35 feet. then weighted her down and let her body sink to the 500-foot bottom, where it couldn't be recovered. In the color slides, it had looked like fun, but Tyler didn't seem to be enjoying it. Then he swam over to the ledge. Beneath us, down 500 feet, was the body of Maria Tyler. I had to convince him that I could recover her body. As I started down, Tyler looked after me desperately. We were closing in on him. A trapped animal can be very dangerous. Tom was a good swimmer and knew how to take care of himself. But he made a mistake by looking after me instead of keeping his eyes on Tyler. It only took Tyler a second to spot a jagged piece of glass in the silt beneath him. Its knife edges made it a dangerous weapon. I was down 110 feet. I couldn't be seen from the ledge. Now all I had to do was to wait a few minutes to make it look as if I had reached the bottom. I didn't know that above me, Tyler was acting out a charade of his own. He was pretending that his ears were hurting him and signaled Tom that he had to surface. But Tom ordered him to stay where he was. Tyler pushed off and started for the top. Tom was right after him. Tom didn't know about the piece of glass until Tyler slashed through his air hose. Then it was too late. Tom had to surface without Tyler. It was almost time for me to return to the ledge, but not knowing what happened above, I was in no hurry. When I reached the ledge and saw that both Tom and Tyler were gone, I swam for the surface as fast as I could. Tyler was a killer. He had killed once and would kill again to keep out of the gas chamber. He threw the motors into reverse and tried to run me down with the propellers. Submerged and cleared myself from those propellers, but then he would have gotten away. My one chance to stop that boat was to foul his propellers with my tanks. I slipped out of my scuba and swam up as Tyler steered for me. If my tanks missed the whirling propellers, I'd be ripped to shreds. The prop stopped. While Tyler was trying to figure out what had happened, I swam for the boat. Tyler was strong and cunning. He was fighting for his life. I preferred to fight him in the water. Without our scubas, the winner would be the man who could hold his breath the longest. Gulps of seawater, and he became a model prisoner again.
Yeah, there you go.
I thought you'd had it when he ran that boat over you.
So did I.
The law had Tyler. He tried to kill Lieutenant Quinn. He tried to kill me, to cover up the murder of his rich wife. We both knew now that a full confession would follow.
Hi there. I'm Lloyd Bridges. Skin diving is certainly a lot of fun, and it's full of adventure. See some more of it again next week, huh? When there'll be another excursion into that fabulous underwater world of Sea Hunt.
I was just a kid when I first read that wonderful novel by Alexander Dumas, The Count of Monte Cristo. There was one episode that I could never forget. It's when Edmond Dante has removed the body of his friend from the burial sack, and he's sewn himself inside of it instead. He believed that when the burial sack is carried to the prison cemetery, he may be able to escape. But something heavy is attached to his legs, a cannonball. Even then, he doesn't realize that the cemetery of his prison is the sea, deep below. Unexpectedly, he feels himself being swung back and forth, and then being carried down into the sea inside the sack, which can become his shroud. But in my wildest nightmares, I never thought a day would come when it would be me inside that burial sack. Claustrophobia is something that you just cannot suffer from if you've worked as I have, beneath the sea. And I've been in some pretty confined places, too, that'd give almost anyone claustrophobia. I've been closed up inside of a two-man sub with hardly room to move, and I've been in a natural tunnel deep in an underwater rock, so narrow in places that I could barely squeeze through. And once I spent a full hour encased in an underwater pipeline. But never have I felt the full terror of claustrophobia myself until that experience inside the burial sack. It all began when I received a phone call from the Atlas Movie Studios. They wanted me to come to the location where they were making a new version of The Count of Monte Cristo. I walked through the grounds of what seemed like a castle, no doubt the Chateau d'If, the prison from which Dante escapes. Then down below, I spotted the company on the beach, busy photographing a scene. The man that I was looking for would be down there. The producer-director was a man that I respected, Walter Wilcox. He had a reputation for integrity and realism in his pictures.
Mike, I want to try something different with the aid of underwater photography. When that burial sack goes down into the sea, I want the audience to go right down into the sea with it. I want the audience to be able to look at this man underwater, fighting his way out of that sack. I want to shoot this scene in the sea itself, with your help.
Sounds great. Want me to double your star, huh?
Well, maybe he does, but I don't.
Well, this is our star, Bill Hill.
Hill?
Excuse me, this is our leading lady, Laura Pepper.
You're excused. Just leave him here.
You want to watch out for her, Mike. Oh, this is Mr. Hill's secretary and stand-in, Mr. Mercer, Mike Nelson.
Mr. Nelson, Mr. Mercer.
Mr. Hill thinks he's perfectly capable of doing this stunt himself. In that, Bill, we disagree.
Walter, that's part of my box office, remember? I do my own stunts, and I'm going to do this one. What I'd like of you, Mr. Nelson, is to train me and then be my safety man when I try it.
Well, we can argue that point later. Maybe this stunt can't be done safely at all. We'll have to find that out first. And Mike, that'll be up to you. You want to take it on?
Please do it, Mr. Nelson.
Well, if the Count of Monte Cristo could do it, I don't see why I can't. Sounds like a lot of fun. I started by looking over the area in which the scene would have to be filmed. Currents didn't seem to be any problem, and it certainly was deep enough. I took regular readings on a light meter. The water had the clarity needed to permit excellent photography. Sharks. I made a mental note to recommend that the cameraman should work from inside a cage. I was reasonably certain that these sharks wouldn't bother us, but he'd work better behind some protection. Altogether, everything seemed to be satisfactory. But the big question still was unanswered. Whether a man inside that burial sack could cut himself out in time to escape drowning, or sharks, or anything else that might happen. There was one way to find out. Try it myself. That would be next.
Benny.
Yes, sir.
Knife, too dull.
But this is supposed to be a crude knife that Monte Cristo makes in jail himself.
I just want to be able to get out of that sack in time, huh?
Yes, sir, Mr. Nelson. Mr. Wilcox says you're the boss. Anything you want. Oh! What's wrong?
Cannonball, it's much too heavy. Take a man down too fast and too far.
But Mr. Wilcox likes authentic props. These are the real McCoy. I went out of my way to
Can't
find
you
them.
make a dummy one that looks like it but weighs a lot less?
Yes, sir. Anything you say.
Okay. And that knife, too, huh?
Yes, sir.
What?
Raise a shot, Mr. Nelson.
Sharper.
All right.
Mr. Nelson. Say, when you make that trial dive this afternoon, I'd like to be your safety man. Well, you see, I've done quite a bit of scuba diving, and, well, if you haven't made any other arrangement, I'd really appreciate the chance.
Well, as a matter of fact, I was just on my way now to see if I could get a safety man. You, mind if I check you out first?
No, not at all. Thanks for the break, Mr. Nelson.
What do you mean, call that a break?
Well, it could get Mr. Wilcox to really notice me. And he's got another picture coming up with a part that's, well, if a director really likes you, it can mean a lot. Besides, Mr. Wilcox has his way. I'm the one who'll do this stunt, not Bill.
Well, how's that going to sit with Bill?
Look, I've been worrying about Bill since we were in college. It's time I started worrying about me. He got his break. I'm still waiting for mine. That guy can't wait forever.
I'll see you at 2 o'clock, huh?
I checked Ed out a few hours later. He handled himself very well. He knew all the signals, and more important, he understood teamwork. Being underwater for a prolonged period didn't seem to bother him at all, but I wanted to make sure. I tried him out on a sharp turn to see whether his reflexes had become sluggish or had been affected in any way, but he just ate it up. He was a real eager beaver, ready to show me every trick in his book. He wanted to keep right on. I finally had to stop him before we ran out of air. But I was well satisfied. He'd be an excellent safety man.
Hiya, Mike.
Bill, I didn't recognize you.
This is what I wear in the prison scenes.
Okay, head down now. Here we go.
I'll see you all later.
Mike?
Yeah, it's me.
You all right?
Yeah, it's in my nose. It just... You got that stopwatch?
Yes. I'll time it from the moment you hit the surface to the moment you reappear. You sure you've got the knife?
Yeah, got it right here.
Good.
Hey, Benny.
Yeah.
Give me a couple of seconds, huh, before you throw me over. Let me hyperventilate.
Okay. Where do we put the counterborn on now, huh?
He acted as my safety man. He took his position at 50 feet.
We can handle it. We got him. Okay. Boy, he's heavy.
Director and his crew were counting the seconds anxiously while I made myself the guinea pig in an underwater test. It was to see whether a man sewn into a loose sack with a cannonball tied to his legs could hold his breath, cut himself free, and reach the surface before blacking out. Ed, the safety man, was standing by with air if I needed it. But before I let anyone else try it, I had to know what the limit would be. It took all my willpower to resist Ed's help. My lungs felt like balloons about to burst. I had made it.
Oh, a little. You feel all right?
What was my time?
It was an eternity. I thought you'd never come up.
That's much too long. I lost my knife, for one thing. Gonna tie this down, Benny.
All right, tie the knife down, right.
To the wrist, huh?
Okay.
A couple of other things like that need to be done before I can let your man get out of that sacking, but your stunt can be done. It'll work.
Good. How many more rehearsals do you think you'll need before we can shoot it?
Just one more ought to do it. But I'm going to be the safety man from now on. I figure the man who really does a stunt ought to have at least one rehearsal inside of that sacking before you take it. What do you say?
Well, I think so, too.
Who's that man going to be?
Ed. Can you be ready for the dress rehearsal by tomorrow morning?
Yeah.
The assistant will give you both a definite call.
That's going to be all right.
Uh-huh.
You're right, Benny. There's plenty of room in there for the camera crew.
Oh, yeah.
We shoot through these windows here.
Ed, I've made up my mind about this stunt. I've just got too much at stake to let anybody else do it. I've been telling the press for weeks now that nobody'd be in that sacking but me, and that's who it's got to be.
Thought this was settled.
Look, Mike, I'll level with you. I know I'm not the world's greatest actor, but this physical stuff, well, that's my special angle, my big appeal.
Yeah, I know, Bill, but Mr. Wilcox said that
Ed, you're still working for me, and that's the way I want it. And that's final.
Thanks.
Because Ed told you that this was his big opportunity, And I suppose he told you in the last 2 years I've gotten him no less than 3 screen tests, and he muffed them all. Ask anybody in the crew. Ask Benny.
It's true.
He just hasn't got what it takes.
Now, this stunt is still my responsibility, you know.
Mike, I've got a proposition for you. I want to try it. If I foul up or you say I'm too slow, whatever, I'll accept it. Word of honor.
No, I don't know, Bill. Mr. Wilcox will never forgive me.
You'll be there as safety man. What could go wrong?
If you don't pass the tests, I tell you to forget all about it. There'll be no arguments with me or with Mr. Wilcox.
Not another word.
But you gotta carry a diving lung in that sack with you.
Okay? It's a deal.
I didn't know whether I was making a mistake or not, but I didn't see how I could lose either way. If Bill handled himself badly underwater, he'd be out of our hair. If he handled himself well, it would make my job easier. Bill was a superb natural athlete. He was out of the sacking and had freed himself in amazing time, as though everything had zippers. I couldn't do any better myself, nor did I know anyone else who could. Bill could be sure that I'd give him the highest marks. He was counting on that in his showdown with the director, and it was a showdown.
Walter, you know I'm not trying to be temperamental. I'm just trying to do the same thing you are. Make a better, more exploitable picture.
We can't shoot it today anyway.
So what happens tomorrow? Do I do it then? Walter?
Look, supposing something happens to you down there.
Nothing's going to happen to me. Mike will be there with me. Why don't you leave it up to him? I'll go along with anything he says, but just ask him.
You heard it. Well, I'm asking.
Oh, he can do it.
On your say-so. Okay.
Bill was made up as the Count of Monte Cristo, and the director was giving him his last-minute instructions and telling him that I had arrived at a last-minute decision, too. Just to play it as safe as humanly possible, I had notified the director that I was taking Bill's stand-in down with me as an additional safety man. Bill agreed that this was a good idea. Relying on Ed was to prove a tragic mistake, but none of us knew it then. Ed also was very agreeable to the suggestion. If things went as he had planned them, he'd be my last resort, and he had his own ideas about that. I directed Ed toward the position that I wanted him to take as the reserve safety man. shark cage with the camera crew inside was lowered into the water. The cameraman released a marker, a signal that they were all set. After that, things moved fast. In another second or two, he would have the knife out and cut himself free. Instead, he kept on kicking and twisting. This wasn't what Bill was supposed to do at all. I thought at first that Bill was acting, prolonging it for the sake of the drama. It was logical. More seconds went by. Too many. Precious seconds. I waited until I could wait no longer. In I went. I cut at the sacking, but my knife wouldn't penetrate. I realized that somehow I had the wrong knife. I beckoned for Ed to come, and I tore at the sacking with my hands. I pulled with everything I had, trying to make the stitches give where the prop man had sewn them. I signaled to Ed again. But instead of swimming to me, he swam away from me. Then the sacking parted. I gave Bill air until his strength came back. Cannonball from his legs. We rose together.
What happened to you down there when I needed you?
Well, I guess I panicked. I'm sorry, Mike.
Did you get our knives mixed up?
No. What do you mean?
Let me see it.
Hi there. I'm Lloyd Bridges. Skin diving is certainly a lot of fun, and it's full of adventure. See some more of it again next week, huh? When there'll be another excursion into that fabulous underwater world of Sea Hunt. can take many unexpected forms. Here was death at the end of a telescope, watching two men as they prepared to dive in an area where divers seldom went. The divers were very excited. They had come across something startling just as their air was running out. And now they were returning to explore it further. They thought it was a secret, but it was a secret that they shared, unknowingly, with someone determined to keep that secret for himself. Deep below them was the wreckage of a large yacht. It could be the Sea Wind, one of the most luxurious yachts ever built. If it was, they had made a tremendous discovery. For the Sea Wind had gone down in a violent storm without a trace before her disabled radio could even give her position. The yacht's owner was Mrs. Bradley Reese, one of the world's richest women. She was on the ship when it sank. With her was part of her magnificent collection of jewels, worth many millions. The discovery of the Sea Wind would be front-page news around the globe. They had said nothing to anyone. Now they would learn whether it was the Sea Wind or not. They had found the Sea Wind, but at the same time, they had found more than they had ever bargained for. On the surface, a visitor had come to their boat, a deadly visitor, with a clever plan for destroying the lives of those who interfered with him. When they reached the surface, they were weary from the strain of their long dive. They didn't realize it then, but there was little chance for them to survive. They were miles from shore, and their boat was gone. They weren't experienced swimmers. The water was bitter cold, the tide was strong, and it was against them. Their strength lasted for a few hours. The stronger one still kept struggling. Then he too succumbed. Bodies were found that would look like accidental drowning, except to the suspicious eye of my good friend, Captain Greg Evans.
Well, that's about the size of it, Mike. I think it's murder. See, one of these fellows was overheard saying something about finding a sunken yacht. Now, of course, that doesn't mean anything in itself. But when you put it together with these...
Boy, oh boy.
Belonged to Mrs. Bradley Reese.
The heiress, huh?
Went down on the Sea Wind. They went down on the yacht with her. That was Mrs. Reese's favorite. Probably right on her finger when she died.
I suppose you've checked them for saltwater traces.
Oh, sure. Lab says positive. Point is, Mike, these have been turning up in pawn shops all over town. There's only one logical conclusion.
Someone's located the wreck of the Sea Wind.
Using it for a private treasure chest. Looting it bit by bit.
And apparently he didn't want to share his private treasure chest with the two unfortunate divers that stumbled onto it, so he killed them, huh?
That's my theory.
Well, if he's been pawning this stuff all over like this, you must have a pretty good description of the guy.
Oh, sure. We have descriptions. Plenty of them. He's using disguises.
Well, how do you know it's the same fella?
Well, we think he made one slip.
Yeah. What was that?
What?
The slip. You said he made a slip.
Oh. Well, it seems that every time he collected on one of these, he pulled out the same money clip. Had a very distinctive design. We haven't been able to pinpoint the description, but it's supposed to look like a claw or a foot or something.
Ask him if it looks like that.
Swim fin, huh?
Yeah.
Say, it could be.
It's something new in the way of jewelry for skin divers. You don't see many of them, but there are a few.
Listen, Mike. You're the guy I need to help me on this case. How about it?
Yeah, sure, but where do we begin?
Here's the file. You read it, and maybe you can tell me. Okay?
Okay, Captain.
Thanks, boy.
Nice seeing you, Greg. Huh? What do you say? Huh?
The file told me very little, but it did report the last place the divers had been seen alive. That was at a supply shop on the end of the Rogers Point Pier. They had stopped there to fill their air tanks. The shop owner had done his best to be helpful to Captain Evans and the authorities. His name was Louis Martin.
Mr. Martin? Mr. Lou Martin?
I do.
Well, that's one use for an air tank.
Ever try to clean a bait tank on a hot day? It helps.
Yeah, I know what you mean. I'm Mike Nelson. Did Captain Evans?
Oh, yes. Captain Evans called, said you were coming out. Said I was to give you every possible assistance.
Well, I'll need it. I want to take a boat out in the direction that you last saw them heading. It was out towards, what's the name of that reef?
Barclay Reef.
Yeah. Is that it right out there?
Yeah.
Hey, you mind if I use your binoculars?
Not at all. Go ahead. There it is.
Thanks. Oh, yeah. I want to take a look at that bottom out there, too. That boat's still missing. Give me something to look for. Maybe their tanks, too. I'd like to find out if they had any air left, but whatever happened to them happened. Say, is there any place around here where I can rent a boat?
Oh, I'll take you out. Wouldn't hear of it any other way.
Well, that's nice of you.
My pleasure, Mr. Nelson. My pleasure.
We dropped anchor over Barclay Reef and prepared to dive. Lou soon proved that he was an excellent diver and a good companion. He went out of his way to be helpful. Even so, we found nothing. We were swimming for hours, but the search was fruitless. All we located was several jettisoned oil drums. It wasn't likely that a small boat or a yacht had dropped them. When you're stuck that way, the best you can do is keep pushing and hope for a break. And that break wasn't far away, even though I didn't know just then what kind of a break it would prove to be. I had gone to 120 feet. Then I realized that Lou was in trouble. He kept holding his ears and pointing to them. He appeared to be in terrible pain. He started up and I followed right after him.
Does this happen here much? Maybe you try to force it. You know, you should wait at a level and let your ears kind of get used to it. No? Just couldn't clear them, huh?
Every time I go below 100 feet, I have trouble equalizing. I have some tablets in my pants pocket. Would you give them to me, please?
Your headache?
Yeah.
These the pants?
Yeah.
This what you want?
Yeah.
As I reached into his pocket, I found something else. A money clip in the shape of a swim fin. One like it had been carried by the man pawning the jewelry from the Sea Wind. I could be just across the deck from the very man that I've been looking for all along. The man who had already killed 2 people to keep the secret of his private underwater graveyard. Next morning, Greg and I had another meeting in Marineland of the Pacific.
Yeah, it all checks out. He's our man, all right.
You mean because you found the money clip on him?
Well, that's one reason. But another one is the fact that he can't go below 100 feet.
What's that got to do with it?
The continental shelf drops off very suddenly along here. Goes real deep, except for 2 areas. And that's less than 100 feet deep, both those areas. This one up here, and the one down here.
So?
Well, we've covered this area completely. I know every foot of it. But down here, he's avoided it. He's kept me away from it.
Carter's Ledge. Why?
Because that's where the wreck of the Sea Wind lies. I'd be willing to bet anything.
Oh, you feel that the Sea Wind can't be down over 100? Oh, because he can't dive over 100 feet.
Exactly.
That's still not enough against... I mean, that's not enough that we can give to a jury.
That's right. You can't just pick him up on suspicion. And he's not going to admit anything, that's for sure. Because he's found a way to kill that's airtight.
Sure. Just lets his victims drown all by themselves. No violence, no evidence.
If he were to kill somebody again, he'd use the same method again, wouldn't he? I mean, it's safe. It works.
Probably. Why? What are you thinking about?
We're going to have to set him up again if we're going to knock him over.
Our scheme was very elaborate and seemed foolproof. Greg stationed himself at the telescope carrying a walkie-talkie. This gave him continuous contact with an amphibian ready for a quick takeoff. Lou had hardly batted an eye when I first suggested going to Carter's Ledge. I thought that he'd try to talk me out of it, but he didn't. He merely said that in that type of water, no diver should be without a partner, and that he'd make the dive with me. I told him that I could never thank him enough. Each of us carried a diving knife, of course. I was prepared to move quickly if he drifted just behind me. He was getting further and further ahead of me, and I let him. He put on quite a show of surprise when he reached the yacht. Suddenly, Lou was no longer in sight. Perhaps he had already deserted me. A few feet away was an open cabin door. I moved through the door cautiously, just in case that Lou was there. He wasn't. This had been a stateroom. A broken frame and some shreds of rotten canvas were on the wall. This could be all that was left of one of the paintings in Mrs. Reese's priceless collection of art. There was no connecting door. I turned to go back, and as I did, the door behind me closed. It wasn't the current. I could hear Lou on the other side, sealing it tight. I had dropped my guard for just a moment, staring at that ruined painting, and that was all that he needed. I was locked in the cabin of a yacht 90 feet below the surface, and half my air was already gone. Even if they captured Lou, it'd be too late to help me. I examined the lock very carefully. The sea hadn't weakened it. I tried to pick the lock with my knife and got nowhere. Mrs. Reese had spent a fortune on her yacht. Everything in it was solidly built.
PG-1 to PG-2. You can take off now.
I lit a flare and tried to burn off the hinges. It didn't seem to work. I tried to force the hinge with my knife. The point broke off. I had to find another avenue of escape. There was a small inside porthole on the rear bulkhead leading to a corridor. It seemed large enough for me to slip through, but not my air tanks. And if I tried to make the surface from that depth without air, I was certain to drown or die of the bends. This had to be the only answer. I removed my air tanks and squeezed through the porthole. It was a very tight squeeze. If I got stuck in any way and held, I was done. I finally made it. With my lungs bursting, I swam around the corridor to pry the cabin door open and recover my air tanks. It was lucky for me that my would-be murderer hadn't removed the fire axe, my only weapon. was on the verge of blacking out when I reached my air tanks. I hoped that the amphibian would be waiting when I reached the surface. It was waiting. And lost no time in picking me up. We reached the pier just in time to intercept Lou. Lou put up a desperate fight. It was a fight for his life. I lost my hood, but I got my man.
Squawk car will be here in a minute.
You realize that you had a fortune in the palm of your hand? A legitimate one?
Legitimate fortune? Who are you kidding?
Nobody, it's true. You had a perfectly legal salvage claim on that yacht. Big percentage of it belonged to you.
Now you've got nothing. 2 men dead.
3.
Hi there. I'm Lloyd Bridges. Skin diving is certainly a lot of fun, and it's full of adventure. See some more of it again next week, huh? When there'll be another excursion into that fabulous underwater world of Sea Hunt.
Corinne Baker was one of the nicest people I'd ever known, and one of the best divers that I'd ever trained. But she had one bad habit, that of diving alone, in spite of my repeated warnings. She was the wife of Dr. Dick Baker, and being a doctor's wife, she thought she could handle just about anything that came along. But the girl who could handle just about anything was about to meet something that she couldn't handle. She was being propelled strongly in a direction that she didn't want to take. Her kidnappers had a firm grip on either side. She was powerless. Corinne lost her depth gauge in the struggle. It was to bring me as close to death by bullets as I had ever been. Not far away from where Corinne had been seized, I was testing an underwater power unit. It attaches to the bottom of a standard air tank and gives a diver greater speed and range. I was quite pleased with it, and a good thing, too. For in just a short time, my life and the lives of two of my best skin diving friends would suddenly depend on it.
That's pretty fancy. How does it work down there for you?
Yeah, it's a cinch. I just relax. It does all my work for me.
Hey, Artie! Come on! What's wrong?
It's Corinne. She's gone.
Corinne? She was out there diving alone?
Yes, and she didn't come up. I was busy cleaning the distributor, and then there weren't any bubbles or anything. She was just gone.
Would you get out and take a look for her?
Well, I only had a faceplate. I couldn't stay down too long, but there wasn't anything anywhere.
Whip me right out there. I'll get my gear. Send a follow-up boat, Artie. With some full tanks, and round up as many divers as you can, huh? Oh, and you better notify her husband, too.
Now, wait a minute, Mike. Let's not jump to conclusions. She could have gone up on shore to visit friends. Where'd you say she was diving?
The usual place.
The Gordon cabin is on shore right near there. She could be there, or on a boat with friends. Any one of 1,000 places. Let's not get excited.
I agree, but if we're going to look for her, let's not waste any time, huh? Go ahead. And don't spend the horsepower. Remember, this has happened before. Your still Corinne is perfectly all right. Let's go. Come on, then.
The hideout toward which they were heading was an exceptionally inaccessible one, cut off from the sea, usually by heavy surf, screened from the sides by huge rocks, and hidden from the shore by high cliffs. Only divers who knew these waters intimately could find their way into it. I wasn't one of them, just then.
Sir, all right. Morning, Miss Baker.
Who are you? What's this all about?
And now for the 11 o'clock news. Sheriff Samuel Curtis admitted today there is still no trace anywhere of the three daring stick-up men who 2 days ago marched boldly into the Sun Neva Casino, sprayed the luxurious gambling hall with tear gas, and escaped with $250,000. For 2 days, every square mile of the surrounding desert has been combed by jeeps, planes, and even helicopters, but without sign of the wanted men. What has the authorities really baffled is that every possible escape route was blocked off within 15 minutes after the bandits sped away. And yet, they seem to have vanished from the face of the earth. Geneva, Switzerland. A new development...
Every possible escape route was blocked off.
How does it feel now?
It's all right. Just the same, I think we better get started with Madame here.
Mrs. Baker, I've been told your husband is a very good doctor, a man of integrity.
Also a very good skin diver. Here. I want you to write him a message. Say, I'm being held. Come with these men.
Why should I?
Because he's got a bullet in his shoulder, and we're getting a doctor here to get it out.
There's even a better reason. She write the message because she wants to live. Also because she wants her husband to live.
Completed a systematic series of broad sweeps through the area where Corinne was last seen. Then, with full tanks, I had extended my search up along the more remote parts of the shoreline. My power unit gave me tremendous range, but I had seen nothing. I was beginning to think that maybe my friend on the pier was right, that Corinne probably had left the water to visit friends on shore. I debated whether to call it off, but some intuition urged me to keep on going.
save your husband. Take the guns.
Then I saw something. It was a depth gauge with Corinne's initials. I didn't have very long to think about it. Off in the distance, divers were approaching. I moved quickly to conceal myself. One of the men was Doc Baker, I was sure of it. And he seemed to be under escort of some kind. Or was he?
Time later for tender moments. Right now I've got this piece of lead in my shoulder that's just aching to be removed.
Well, that's reason enough to bring me here. But what about her?
You see, we haven't harmed your wife.
All right, let me take a look at it. Over there, and get that shirt off.
I was moving very cautiously, not knowing what might be waiting for me up ahead or up above.
Bring that bag over here. I want you to lie down and lay your head on this bag. You'll have to help me, honey.
One thing, Doc. I can take the pain, so no anesthetics. They dull the senses. I won't mind keen. You better not make any mistakes. They say they bury a doctor's mistakes. I promise you, if you make one, we'll bury the doctor.
Bone injury. You're lucky. It should heal very quickly.
Thank you, Doctor. It feels very good.
We did what you wanted. Now let us go.
Have patience, Mrs. Baker. Patience.
How do we know you will let us go?
You don't. All right, get over against the rock so I can watch you. Go on. Come on.
I had seen Doc Baker desperately slipping a couple of rocks into his bag. Anything that he tried that way might be sheer suicide. I would have to distract them quickly. An underwater flare might do it. They wouldn't know what to make of the smoke or where it came from. If I was in luck, one of them might even come down to investigate.
I don't know. Better check it. If you see anything, come up fast. I shut off his air valve. I felt him grow weak. You see anything? Just bubbles.
It didn't take long to tie him up. I had turned on his air again. Now he could breathe, but not much more than that.
You better get down there. Right. Here.
I knew that if the second man came at all, he would be far more cautious. I had left his friend out as bait.
here. Come on, hurry up. Up against the rocks there. Put your hands on the rocks. Lean on them.
I soon had him ready to join his friend. Now there was only one bandit left. I couldn't help Doc Baker very much anymore. But maybe I could give him the chance to help himself. Just a few feet of water can slow bullets down tremendously. I could try to draw the wounded man's fire just long enough for the doc to make his move. I hoped the doc would have the presence of mind to seize his opportunity. Given him a good chance, but nothing had happened. Maybe I hadn't stayed close enough to the surface long enough.
Don't, darling, don't do anything.
Honey, he's out cold.
Mike! Mike Nelson!
Mike!
Mike!
Oh, Mike, thanks a lot. Hello, Mike. Hey, where are those other two?
They're all tied up, about 30 feet down, waiting for the police. Hello there. I'm Lloyd Bridges. You know, 3/5 of the world is covered by the sea. And how little most of us know about that underwater world. Go below with us again next week, huh? For another thrilling adventure in Sea Hunt.